How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Critically Incorrect, your weekly gaming podcast. I'm your host, Online Brandon, here today with Charlie once again, if you wanted to say hi.
Hello.
And yeah, we didn't have an episode last week just because of the holidays. We were originally planning on doing an episode, just recording it earlier in the week before the holidays, but we decided just to throw in last week's content into this week's content, because they're essentially going to be pretty similar. Last week we were going to talk about the Game Awards in terms of like our nominees and stuff like that. And we decided just to squish it into this week's episode, which we're going to do our predictions. So this should be a long media episode, which should make up for that, which should be pretty exciting. But without further ado, we should probably just hop into this because we have a lot to talk about. Charlie, what have you been playing over this last break or so? And yeah.
Well, I've played a pretty large range of games, to be honest. Obviously, the same kind of multiplayer things as usual. I haven't touched much Call of Duty, but I have been playing a lot of Battlefield still. I think I've played just over 30 hours at this point, so I'm still having a lot of fun with it. A new patch did come out today. I haven't had much time to try it out yet, but I do know they've fixed a lot of the issues I had with the game. Some things with like reviving and that sort of thing. Annoyingly, performance doesn't still seem to be great, so hopefully that's next on their agenda. But overall, I'm still having a lot of fun with that. I went ahead and beat the Hextech Mayhem League game, and it's quite short. I think it only took me just over like 2 hours. It's not a very long game. It's just a short rhythm game to play through. I quite enjoyed that one. It's just a fun little game to play through. I've played a decent chunk of VR the past few weeks, just diving back into that on the Quest. And I did try out After the Fall because they did have like a play test if you pre-ordered the game, which if you don't know is the new like VR co-op zombie shooter from the guys who did Arizona Sunshine. I think it comes out next week. But if you pre-ordered, you got access to this playtest. So I pre-ordered just basically to try it and then refunded it. I enjoyed what I played. I thought it was pretty interesting, although it seemed very difficult playing it alone with AI. So I'm probably going to hold off on it for now, just because I don't really want to pick it up unless quite a few of my mates do, because I'll only really want to play it in a group. So I'm holding off on that one for now, but it seems pretty fun. Aside from that, a new rhythm game did come out today. I think it's called Smash Drums. It's such a weird name. But it's just like a basically Beat Saber with drums. I had never heard of this game, but Upload VR had like their showcase today, and they showed it off and basically said, "Hey, it's out now," and I picked it up, and it's pretty fun. It's also very polished. It didn't look that great in the trailers, but it's actually surprisingly fun. It's like $20, and there's about 30 songs in the game right now, which is pretty strong for a launch lineup of songs. So they're not anything I've heard of or anything, but that's still pretty fun. As you know from me talking on here, I'm super into rhythm games and stuff, so I'm looking forward to play some more of that. I have also tried a bit of Fall Guys. The season 6 did come out this week, and they have added cross progression. So I'm trying. I think this season I'm going to try and reach max level because the only two achievements I have left are reach max level and like equip all legendary stuff. So when I switched over to like when I added it onto my PlayStation progression, it gave me all the trophies except for those two. So I need to get those two. I've already got like the infallible trophy. So I just need to get those last two on PC, and then I can and get myself the platinum, which is quite nice. And then lastly, I have been playing quite a bit of Halo Infinite. I'm still having quite a bit of fun with it. Obviously, as everyone knows, the progression is not great, and they are tweaking it a bit, and it does still need quite a bit of work. But right now, I'm still having fun with the game. I think on Steam, I've played nearly 40 hours, so most of that
40?
is with mates. 40 hours, yeah. I got 37 according to Steam, so yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot. I basically all that time is spent playing it with mates. I haven't played too much of it solo, but me and my mates are having a blast on that. I do have some issues with it. Like I do think a lot of the maps are pretty lackluster, and some of the weapons still do need tweaking. But I'm still having fun with it, so I'm gonna keep playing that one. But aside from that, I think that's pretty much it.
Nice, nice. I haven't played terribly much. I guess I'll talk about like what I've watched so far. The Cowboy Bebop live action came out since we last did our episode, so I watched through all of that within. Took me maybe about like close to a week. I enjoyed it. Yeah, there's a lot of people don't like it online, and for good reason, because it isn't really faithful to the anime. But I always just kind of take it as like a fun little thing that, the anime always exists, right? So it's just cool to see some scenes in live action in whatever form, and if it gets more people to watch the anime, then so be it. So yeah, I enjoyed that, even though it was very different from the anime. Besides that, I played like an extra hour SMT5. I picked up Metroid Dread last weekend, and I'm like 3 hours into it. I want to play more. I'm probably going to play more today because I have a bit of a break today. But I'm really enjoying that game. I think that has a possibility of being up for Game of the Year for me, alongside like Resident Evil Village. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that game. Definitely, think you should pick it up and give it a shot. Definitely very different from Nintendo. I like to see them, go back to Metroid more. So yeah, that's been really fun. Besides that, my main game I've been playing has been Halo Infinite. I have like 8 hours on the game so far, which is a lot for me, considering how little I play games nowadays, apparently. So yeah, I've been playing through that. I even streamed it like the other night. Yeah, it's been very fun. The progression definitely still needs work, and the balancing as well. But they have done some tweaks, so it's like at least serviceable now. But yeah, still needs some work. And then besides that, I think that's been it. Coming like blank for everything else, but I think I haven't played anything else. And if it was something that wasn't really that big, maybe just like some Fortnite with friends. Yeah. I did, I think we haven't really talked about Elden Ring. I know we were planning on talking about that like 2 weeks ago or a week ago. I know you played Elden Ring. Did you want to give like your thoughts on that playtest as well?
Yeah, I didn't play a ton. I think I played probably like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I wasn't like blown away or anything. I started it up and immediately I was like, okay, yeah, this just feels like Dark Souls. Just felt like Dark Souls 3, to me at least. It seemed okay. Like I said, it didn't blow me away. Um, if anything, like the performance wasn't great. I was kind of hoping it would perform a bit more consistently. It was stuttering a little bit and
Are you
stuff.
playing on PC or
Um,
PS5?
I was on PS5. I did see, is it Lance McDonald or something? I can't think what his last
Yeah.
name is. He was saying like if you play the PS4 version on PS5, that runs better or something, which is interesting. So it's probably just it needs some optimization. It's not fully out yet, right? So makes sense. But yeah, what I played seemed interesting. It wasn't enough to convince me to buy the game at launch. I still don't think I will, just because there's so much coming out then that I personally would rather play. But yeah, for me, it didn't do anything to like really entice me in. I still need to go back and beat like Demon Souls and stuff anyway. So yeah.
Nice. I also played like probably about the same amount as you, like an hour and a half. I really liked it actually. I think it's really cool. So essentially, just like how the game plays is really fun, in the way that you have like a dedicated jump button. Interaction is now like on triangle, which is like a first for the series. That's normally on X. I feel like the traversal feels a lot like Sekiro, which is cool. Except now you have like a. Did Sekiro have a dedicated jump button, or did it only have like
Yeah, it
grapple
did.
points?
Yeah.
It did. So yeah, if you move around like Sekiro, but the combat still feels more like Dark Souls, which is cool. Aesthetically, it looks like Dark Souls 3. The big thing for me is just how different like the level design is now, because it is open world, right? It's so cool to like fight bosses naturally along the world, and just the way that you can kind of just choose to go around those bosses if you don't want to fight them. Reminds me a lot of Breath of the Wild, and the fact that like you kind of just choose what you want to do. Obviously, some bosses will be higher level. I think I went to like one cave during my session, and I fought like an optional boss down there, and it's just really cool. It just reminds me of my time playing Breath of the Wild, and I can't wait to do that for Elden Ring. So it actually, I'd say it went past my expectations for the game. I actually really enjoyed what I played of that hour and a half. I decided not to play anymore because I'm already sold until February. So yeah, I couldn't be happier about that. But yeah, looking forward to that. The game's only like 2 months away at this point, a little bit over that. So that's really cool. Anyways, the releases this week, we got quite a few. Obviously, as Charlie said earlier, Fall Guys Season 6 is out. Minecraft Caves and Cliffs also got an update. This is like part 2 of that Caves and Cliffs update. I checked it out briefly for like 5-10 minutes, just opened up a game on PC, and spawned it with the new 1.18 version. And yeah, the caves are pretty massive, as well as some of the cliffs. It's really cool to see a game I've been playing since I was like 10 years old to like actually look different for once, because the terrain does look different on the mountains, if you get some of the new kind of like designs, which is really, really cool. And then, as well as another update came in the form of Avengers. Yeah, Spider-Man finally came out for PlayStation owners. Charlie, I think he's played a bit of it. Did
Yeah,
you want
I
to give
have
your
played a
thoughts on
little
it?
bit. Yeah, I haven't played too much. I mainly hopped in because one, I wanted to try Spider-Man. Two, I was going to try and beat the Black Panther stuff because I never got around to it. But honestly, I just couldn't be bothered. I booted up the game and yeah, I unlocked Spider-Man because literally you do like an opening cutscene type thing. It just gives you the character and then it's literally, hey, go do everything you've been doing for however many hours you've played the game, but now with Spider-Man. It's just like, I'd much rather it had a cool story where you fight some Spider-Man villain, and then you unlock him and can grind out the character that way. It's just very clear that they didn't want to really do this character exclusively, but they had to, so they limited what kind of content he had just so people wouldn't feel left out, which sucks, but I get it. I do know they have added like the first raid as well now, but I'm never gonna play that because you need like a really high power level and you need a full team. And even if I was the highest power level, I've got no one I know that that has put in the time to get to that point. I have a couple friends that own the game, but I think we all just kind of played the campaign and did a bit of the multiplayer, but didn't play anywhere near enough to do any of the high level end game stuff. So yeah, I mean it's there for people who want it, but it's not gonna bring in new players, I don't think.
That's acceptable. Yeah, it's a shame to see how Avengers comes and goes. Just the way that the game launched and just the way, the DLC has kind of just been trickled out. Like, it's obvious that, like, no one really plays this game anymore. Like, not a lot of people play. Obviously, there's still, like, the Marvel fans that enjoy it, but it definitely wasn't the big boom that they were hoping for. You could tell with the Spider-Man release that, like, either like what you said, they didn't want to like make people feel left out, or just the fact that they probably don't have many resources on Avengers anymore. They're probably not going to be doing much for 2022, I imagine. So this might have been like their last big update. Who knows? Yeah, just a shame to see. Anyways, did you want to tell the people your thoughts on Solar Ash, which is an upcoming game that just came out, I believe today, the day we're recording, by Annapurna?
Yeah, so yeah, Solar Ash came out today on PlayStation and PC. I actually have beaten this game because I did get to play test it a few months back now. I think I mentioned it on the podcast. I can't remember. Um, but yeah, I wasn't allowed to talk about it then. I guess I can now because the game's actually out. I really enjoyed the game. Even at that, like, I say early state, it was probably almost close to going gold at that point. But I really enjoyed it. The movement is super slick. It's very much Shadow of the Colossus meets like Jet Set Radio, which I think even one of an article I read called it that. And that's literally how I would describe it. Right, it is like playing Shadow of the Colossus, but you're on a pair of roller skates, and you're kind of zooming around clouds and platforming. It's super fun, super smooth. Some of the secret stuff you can do in that game is pretty fun. Um, Overall, like the story's not that strong. The narrative's pretty weak. It is very kind of lore based, but it's just there's not much there that kept me interested. But gameplay wise, that's what held me. I think it took me about 10 hours. It's quite a lengthy game to be honest. Especially for an indie game from a studio that size. But yeah, I super enjoyed it. I'm sure it's gonna do well. It is by the guys who did Hyper Light Drift, obviously, so it's probably gonna do quite well. I do recommend it. I don't actually know how much it's going for, so
It's like
I
$40
can't really
here.
say. Okay, so I don't really know whether it would be worth the money or not. I'd say it is. Like if I hadn't played it, I would have probably picked it up. So, but obviously I have played it, so I'm not that bold about buying it now. But yeah, no, I did really enjoy it. But yeah, I might pick it up eventually and play it through again. But it was a fun time for sure.
That's awesome to hear. I was surprised to hear about that. I almost picked it up today, but then I realized I'm already playing through a lot of stuff, so I'll hold off. But I definitely do want to pick it up soon, just because the way you described it, Jet Set Radio meets, Shadow Colossus, and I think this is like one of the games that they've been showing off for like at least over like 2 years now at like the Game Awards and like the PS5 events. So
Yeah.
I definitely can't wait. Annapurna never really misses as well, and Heart Machine, as you said, the devs behind Hyper Light Drifter. So I'm really excited for this one. Gives me motivation to beat some games I'm currently working on. But anyways, we'll move on to some gaming news. We got quite a bit of stuff to go through, and then later on we'll talk about our Game Awards nominees predictions as well as our world premiere predictions. So yeah. Anyways, first news story came out this week, and that is PS Plus. So the PS Plus games for December were announced, and overall I'd say it's an okay month. Definitely better than the past few months we've had. I know a lot of people didn't like those. So first of all, on PS4, we're getting Mortal Shell and Lego DC Supervillains. So yeah, those are our two PS4 games. Mortal Shell is like I think it's like an indie Dark Souls kind of game, and Lego DC Supervillains kind of self-explanatory. And then the big one, I guess you could say, is the PS5 release, which is Godfall. Interestingly enough, though, this is the Challenger Edition, which apparently doesn't have any like the main campaign content. This is apparently just the end game content for Godfall, which I find super weird. If anything, you'd think it'd be the opposite, right? Like you'd have just the main campaign, and then like they'd want you to buy for end game content, but maybe they think that people will play the end game content and want to have like a campaign to work through, so they'll pick up the campaign or something. I don't know, it's interesting. But what'd you think about those games for December?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty strong pick. Mortal Shell I played a bit of when it came out, when I went around my mates because he picked it up. It is like a very Dark Souls s kind of game. It had some cool, unique ideas, so I might give it a go because I know it had a PS5 upgrade, but I don't know if you're gonna get it with the PS Plus version because they didn't say. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Lego DC Supervillains, I used to love the Lego games, but I haven't played that one, so I'll probably give it a go because it's one that I've thought about picking up many times when it's been on sale and just not tried it. So I'll probably give it a go just for a laugh. And Godfall, when I first saw it was getting added, I was kind of excited because I've wanted to give Godfall a go since launch, but I just didn't want to pay for it. But then when they announced, obviously, that it's going to be this Challenger edition where you can only play the endgame content, I'm suddenly nowhere near as interested. Mainly because, like, there's no reason for me to buy the game, to play the story or anything. Because even if, say, you're just getting the endgame content, you're starting off at max level with some really cool gear, and you start off with all the different, like, types of armor and things. So it's almost pointless buying the game because all you'll be doing is buying the game to then start from level 1 and grind to where you were when you got the game for free. It's a really weird idea. I kind of get it. Like the way they advertise it is it's there for people so they can join their friends. But let's be real, none of your friends have Godfall. So like it's the most pointless thing. Like I get it if you somehow have a friend that owns Godfall, but let's be real, no one owns Godfall. So yeah, I don't know. It's a cool idea, but I think it would have just been better if they just gave the whole game for free and maybe made the expansion. You have to buy that because obviously you don't get the expansion with this. So, yeah, it's an odd choice, but I might give it a go. We'll see.
It's odd because like you'd think that like they did this move so that they could still earn money from people buying the campaign, but like no one's gonna do that if you're already max level and you have all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And it
exactly.
kind of takes away the progression of unlocking like the other like uh, designs or characters, right? It's kind of weird. I also find it hilarious because I remember when Godfall like first got reviewed, it was getting like sixes and like sevens maybe at max. People are like, "Oh, PS Plus game in 1 year," and that's literally what happened. It's literally been 1 year, and now it's on PS Plus, which is hilarious. But yeah, interesting. I'll probably check it out, play it around, see how the gameplay works. But I'm honestly not really expecting to dive into Godfall. I've heard from like the people that played it as well. It's nothing really special. So yeah, I already have enough to play as it is. Anyways, another news: Fortnite, the end event was announced. I believe this was announced last week, or yeah, I think last week. And essentially, the end of Chapter 2 has pretty much been confirmed. They did a similar thing with, the end of Chapter 1, which was just, the first era of Fortnite, right? Where they had, like, this big end event. Everyone knows it as, like, the Black Hole event. They essentially already announced that, the end event is back. It's kind of weird because they're being vocal that this is the end of Chapter 2, which I think is the only way they could have been, announcing this because they can't really pull off what they did before with the Black Hole because, people are looking for it now. Yeah, just cool time if you're into Fortnite and shit because obviously the game's going to be getting a big revamp in terms of, moving over to Unreal Engine 5 and obviously they'll probably add like new gameplay mechanics like they do with Chapter 2. So pretty cool stuff there. Do you want to talk about your thoughts on Chapter 3 and what you're looking forward to, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm excited about Chapter 3. I dive into Fortnite every now and then. I go through kind of like waves of playing it, right? Like I'll not play it for a month or two, and then I'll really grind it for a week or two. That's kind of been the situation for a while now. I played it a few weeks back for probably a week solid with my mates playing every day, each evening, and then we stopped again. I'm gonna play probably tonight and a bit tomorrow, just because I do want to get to the final. I want to get to tier 100 right before it ends. I think I'm at like 92, so I'll easily do it. I just need to sit down and play for a bit. Um, but yeah, I enjoy Fortnite still. I do think it has its ups and downs, and overall, I think Chapter 2 was pretty weak compared to Chapter 1. I think it definitely had some cool seasons here and there, but like this current season didn't really add anything that pulled me, to be honest. And I think the lead up to the end of the chapter's been kind of underwhelming. But it definitely had some highs. I think stuff like the Marvel season I think was really good, and I hope they do more like full seasons based on crossovers. Um, Obviously, I know it doesn't work for everyone because some people, if you're not into Marvel, right, you're probably not going to be, as interested to play that season. But obviously, it captures the majority of their player base, so I'm sure it's fine. But I'd love to see them do like a full-on DC season and stuff, which I think will probably happen. They've done a lot of DC stuff, so stuff like that would be cool to see. But yeah, I'm excited to dive into Chapter 3. It should be beginning of next week sometime. The event, I think, is Saturday night, so yeah, I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, same here. I definitely agree with your thoughts on how like chapter two is kind of underwhelming near the end. I think the highs for me were like everything with Agent Jones and the story because I think the story in
Yeah.
Fortnite is kind of cool. I think when they actually like do a lot with it. So everything when they had Troy Baker voicing Agent Jones was pretty cool. Like the Hunter season and the seasons that followed
Yeah,
after
the
that.
Hunter season
I
was
just
good.
I just like me and my friends definitely agree. Like the last two seasons have been really underwhelming. Like they were going pretty strong with like the Hunter and the Primal season with like the story, and then all of a sudden there were like aliens and cubes, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. The cubes, I guess, kind of came back from like chapter one, but the way the story's been told is kind of like I don't know. Like I feel like it hasn't really been told clearly what's going on with the cubes. But yeah, it's just weird stuff like usual. Hopefully we'll get back. There have been like some leaks for chapter 3 that I just saw that apparently Agent Jones is back, so it'll be cool to get the story back on what we had originally. So I'm looking forward to it. Obviously it'll be like a new map, right? So it'll be nice to rediscover a lot. That was always a fun feeling with like the original Fortnite and obviously chapter 2. So looking forward to having that next week. Although I do have like finals next week, so kind of a shit time to do that. But yeah, we'll move on anyway. Speaking of releases coming up here, Sons of the Forest finally got a release date for May 20th, 2022. They had like a new trailer to correspond with that. This is only currently for PC. Obviously, Sons of the Forest, like The Forest originally, is mainly a PC title that will come to consoles later. I think this was originally announced at the Game Awards a few years back, and people have been wanting a date for a while. I know my brother plays The Forest, and he's been always wanting to know when Sons of the Forest is coming out, so cool for that. Charlie, you a fan of Sons of the Forest or The Forest at all or no?
It's not one for me. I'm not big on the survival games and stuff, but a couple of my mates from work are super into the forest. They've been really looking forward to this game, so yeah, they were excited to see this news. They've been trying to get me into the forest, but honestly, I'm not a big fan of the grindiness of just the sort of boring, like kind of monotonous aspects where you're just chopping down trees and building bases and stuff. I've never really liked that in games, so it's not for me. But visually and stuff, it looks pretty intriguing. So I'll probably have a look at it, but I don't think I'll pick it up.
Yeah, I played a bit of The Forest with my brother, and I wasn't like the biggest fan. Like I don't mind chopping down trees and placing like buildings if it's like I don't know, like I enjoy that with like in Minecraft, I guess. But like I don't know, there just wasn't really much to do in The Forest. Like I know there was like definitely some stuff you could find, and like yeah, it was just very hard to find that sort of thing. It was just more of like you create your own fun, right? So I wasn't the biggest fan, but happy for those that are looking forward to that. Anyways, another game that, well, I guess is getting close to release is Dying Light 2. And luckily for this game, it went gold just recently. So, yeah, that February 4th release date is pretty much locked at this point. The only reason they delay it now is just, for, competition's sake to get their game out at a better time. But I think February 4th will work for them. And a lot of people that are looking forward to Dying Light 2 are probably going to pick it up. They're not going to, like, be swayed by, like, Elden Ring or something, I don't think. So, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I am definitely looking forward to this game. I was a big fan of the first one. I'm still like, there's always like I don't know, 30% of part of me that's just like worried about this game just because of everything we've heard about the development behind the scenes. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just, we wait and see at this point, right? Everything that they've shown like this last year has looked pretty good. But yeah, really, we'll just have to wait until the game comes out. What are your feelings right now on Dying Light 2 currently?
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit more confident about it now, to be honest. I think I'm probably gonna pick it up on day one. Like I've been pretty excited about it, and then kind of iffy when we heard some of the development issues. But the previews they did a few weeks back, and then some of the more recent sort of gameplay deep dives and things have given me a bit more hope for the game. I think it does look pretty promising, and the previews seemed pretty positive. There was one guy I watched and he showed quite a bit of like the parkour footage, and that was the one thing I was a bit unsure of. There seems to be a weird thing where like the way, even though the animations look really cool, the way they do them, it can almost feel like the game is slowing you down. So because you might be moving really quick and then you jump through a gap and it gives you this kind of animation, kind of slows you down a bit. And kind of ruins your momentum, which wasn't really a thing in one. Everything was very smooth. So hopefully they either kind of speed that stuff up before launch or tweak how they do that stuff a little bit, because I really enjoyed the fluidity of like the parkour in the first one. So that's the thing I'm kind of playing the game for the most, to be honest. Like the zombie stuff and the combat's kind of cool, but I'm more playing it as I love Mirror's Edge and I just want a cool parkour game that also happens to be a zombie open world. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it does look promising. I'm probably going to finish my replay of the first one at some point over Christmas, just before 2 comes out, because I never played the following either, so I do want to play that. But yeah, I'm glad it's gone gold. Hopefully, we're not going to have another Cyberpunk on our hands, but we'll see.
You think every developer now wants to avoid that situation, so hopefully not.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you, I'm more confident than I am worried. I'm looking forward to it. I don't think I'll be able to finish my replay that I started with you. Obviously, just because I have a lot of other games to play, but I'll definitely be there because I still remember what happened in 1. So I'm confident in just jumping straight into it. Anyway, speaking of CD Projekt Red, they did push back the next-gen versions of Cyberpunk 2077 to early next year. Yeah, kind of a bummer, but also, like, we're really getting close to the end of the year, so kind of to be expected. I don't know. Every single time the news story comes up, I have the same thoughts, right? It's like, where are the priorities? Like, you'd think that, like, ever since launch, they'd have, like, a fire under their ass to, like, do right by the audience and fix the game, but it seems like they haven't had that at all, and they're just kind of taking the money and slowly working on whatever they want to work on, and if we get to it, we get to it kind of mentality, right? Like, it's been a solid year and we've gotten good updates on PC, but nothing really solid on the console side besides just next gen versions are apparently better, but obviously we're still waiting for the full next gen version. So yeah, my thoughts remain the same. What did you think about that, Charlie?
Yeah, the next gen version being pushed back didn't surprise me too much. It seems now that the board is kind of listening more to the devs now. When they tell them they need to delay something, they're actually doing it, which is always a good idea, right? The way that the devs seem to be viewing the next gen version is almost like a reboot of the game. Like they need this version to be almost 100% polished so that when it comes out, reviewers and whoever it is will look at it and go, okay, now this is what it should have been at launch, right? And I'm sure it will still be missing a lot that they want to add in the expansions and things. But overall, they want it to be a fully polished experience. I know there's meant to be one more patch coming out before the next gen version, and I think that's still meant to be coming out this year, which is apparently going to be the biggest one they've done so far. I think it's meant to be called like the 1.5 patch because the devs are saying that it's that big a patch. They want it to be like a big number on there to show people that it has got a lot. I think the biggest delay that surprised me was the Witcher 3 stuff. That was meant to come out this year, and it seemed like almost certain that was going to come out before Cyberpunk. But they're now saying like end of next year for the Witcher 3 thing, which I think is crazy.
For the
So
next gen
it
version.
seems, Yeah, so it seems like they're moving a lot of resources off of that. They have also said they're moving a lot of resources from Cyberpunk patching to the first expansion, because it seems like they've got a lot of the team working on that now. Because they're probably aiming to release that, obviously, summer to end of next year would be my guess. So I imagine once that next gen version comes out, they want to have that first expansion come out relatively soon, is their plan. And then obviously they've got the team working on the Cyberpunk Online stuff, which is now meant to be like just a mode rather than the full game, and things like that. So yeah, I'm glad that they're able to push back stuff as much as they can. Honestly, I kind of want it to just be a No Man's Sky at this point, and they stop talking about it, and then they just drop the next gen patch, and it blows
Same.
people away. I do know it's had a lot more positivity recently because of the Steam sale. A lot of people picked it up, and it has been patched a lot now, and people are starting to realize on PC at least, it's a pretty good experience to play through it. Um, so yeah, hopefully that next gen patch does a lot more to it, but hopefully we see it sooner rather than later. But if it takes later, cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I've seen the Steam reviews, yeah, and people, it's kind of like what I expected. Like, a few years down the line or a year down the line, when the performance gets better and the game gets cheaper, that people start to realize that the game itself isn't that bad. It's just everything that was like, technical surrounding it was the issue. Obviously, there's still like missing features, but still, I'd say it's really still a solid RPG, with the characters and story and all that. But yeah, we'll move on. Anyways, we got a first look at Wesker reportedly in the Resident Evil 4 remake. This is thanks to the voice actor that plays him. Forgot his name, but let me figure it out right now. Interestingly enough, the way this kind of dropped, a lot of news outlets really aren't talking about it. It's interesting because it kind of has to be surrounded by like the allegations that are going around him. So like apparently he's been like talking to fans that I believe some of them might even be underage. And he's essentially just kind of like he's had a known history of like flirting with like fans and stuff like that, and like showing stuff that he isn't supposed to because he obviously signed an NDA for like other things, to just gain their trust, and obviously taking advantage of the fact that they're fans, right? So yeah, I'll probably post an image of like the screenshot that has been going around. But yeah, interesting. It's weird because I used to be really excited for this Resident Evil 4 remake, but ever since I've been playing in VR, I'm kind of like, this is my Resi 4 remake in a way. Like, I don't know if I'll be very excited to play the game yet again, but this time, like, pancake style, you know what I mean? I'll definitely probably still pick it up and see what they changed, but it's very interesting. Yeah, let me see if I could pull up the guy's name real quick here, just obviously because I don't want to say the wrong one. It's DC Douglas. That's the voice of Wesker for, yeah. Did you see the allegations, Charlie, or no?
I didn't see the allegations. I did see the artwork. Obviously it wasn't too much. Like it was concept art, right? So, it looked like Wesker. Like there's not much else to say about it, right? But yeah, I didn't know anything about the allegations because I hadn't read up on it. So
Yeah, it's weird because I saw like news stories that were linking to the thread of the allegations, but they were more like talking about like the headline of Wesker, like a screenshot of him
yeah,
of like artwork. I'm like, bro, there's a bigger story here with allegations, but whatever. Okay. So yeah, definitely look into that. I'll probably post the thread if I remember in the description below. I'll try to remember to do that. So yeah. Anyways, and other news stories, that big PlayStation remake that Charlie and I discussed probably a few months back, that was, I think we talked about the composer that was like Irish or something like that for an upcoming PlayStation remake. That's apparently going to be Square Enix's Chrono Cross. So yeah, this came by the way of, I think, VGC. Yeah, essentially, a lot of people are kind of mixed on this because I feel like a lot of people want this to be Chrono Trigger, not Chrono Cross. Let me see what they said about it themselves, but I know that... yeah, VGC themselves were the ones that reported on it being a big game. Besides that, just the development is according to an Xbox era co-founder, Nick Baker, apparently said that it is Chrono Cross Remastered. Yeah, it's weird because he says Chrono Cross Remastered, but she was saying a remake. So, yeah, I guess to keep your expectations low, assume it's just a remastered. But they did say that was going to be announced in December, so hey, maybe it's going to be announced next month at the Game Awards. Or next week, actually, yeah, because we are in December now. It's the second day. So yeah, interesting stuff there. That's a weird one to remake or remaster. What are your thoughts on that, Charlie?
see, I hadn't actually heard of Chrono Cross. I know Chrono Trigger by name, and that is literally it. Like I do not know about the series at all. So when I saw it, I was like, okay, cool. I'll probably never play this because it's just not for me. It's for people that obviously grew up with those games, right? Um, but yeah, I heard it and thought, wait, is that just like the Western name for Chrono Trigger or something? And then yeah, looked it up and it's like the sequel or something. So
I think it's
um,
like the first game or something. Maybe I'm not sure.
I think
I think it's a
when I looked it
prequel.
up, Chrono Trigger was like on the Super Nintendo, and Chrono Cross is on the original PlayStation. So, or Chrono Cross, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know what it is really. I guess we might see it at the Game Awards, but I'm not expecting too much from it after this, to be honest.
Yeah, it definitely came out after, but I think it might be a prequel. I'm honestly not too sure. I
Okay.
didn't really hear about. I've heard Chrono Cross like maybe once in my lifetime, but definitely Chrono Trigger's the bigger name. I actually
Yeah.
started playing Chrono Trigger this year on Steam. Didn't make it that far, knowing me, but I played like a solid 2 hours, and I thought it was decent for an RPG. So yeah, it'll be cool to see this remastered or remade. Um, I definitely want to see it because obviously that's like Final Fantasy level almost, where it's like a 1999 game in 2021. That'll be cool to see. Hopefully it's ambitious, but based on the way they said like remastered, I'm gonna keep my expectations low. Anyways, another news story that actually broke today is Vince Zampella is taking over Battlefield, essentially the franchise at EA. Yeah, this came out I believe today because of like the original person that's like in charge of the franchise is like leaving the company for like his own personal endeavors. So yeah, he's gonna be taking over the Battlefield franchise, which it's funny. I've seen like a lot of memes online of like Vincent Pella is kind of like the king of FPS because obviously his history like COD 4 and Titanfall. So that'll be really cool. That actually gives me a lot of faith in the Battlefield franchise. Alongside this, the Halo co-creator Marcus Leto is building a new Seattle studio. This was actually, I think, announced a few weeks ago. We didn't really cover it much. But yeah, this is apparently going to be focused on like story-based Battlefield content. So cool to see that Battlefield still, hopefully will have a bright future ahead of it, despite 2042 kind of being underwhelming. I'd say all the shooters besides Halo this year have kind of been underwhelming. I think Battlefield and COD have both underperformed, and definitely in like fan reception, both of those did not hit the mark that fans were hoping for. Yeah, what are your thoughts on everything Battlefield related?
Yeah, I mean, this news like it's kind of a mixed bag for me because I think the Vince takeover makes a lot of sense, right? Like he's currently heading up both Respawn and Ripple Effect, formerly Dice LA, who made Battlefield Portal, right? Which arguably is the best mode in the new Battlefield. It's the one that people are most positive on because it's clear that it's the one that's had the most love and kind of work put into it. So I think him taking over Battlefield over at Dice, I think makes a lot of sense. At the same time, Oscar Gabrielson leaving, who was the previous general manager at Dice, I think him leaving is a big deal because he has been with the company since Battlefield 3, and he was kind of one of the last main faces that was left at Dice from those games. Most of the other people who were on board joined around Battlefield 1 and 5, um, including most of the main team. So a lot of the team at Dice now aren't the Dice that people love and remember. A lot of them have left now. So it'll be interesting to see the direction they take because it seems like with Vince at the helm, it's probably going to take a bit of a different direction considering his success with Apex and things in more recent years. And it definitely seems like after the kind of consensus of the disappointment with 2042, they might want to take the game in a more free to play route. And I think they've kind of designed the game in a way that it can be done like that with Hazard Zone and things. So um, I'm interested to see what their plans are for the future. Obviously, they did reassure people here, like we are going to still support 2042 for a few years, right? I know Tom Henderson has said he's already been hearing a lot about the next game. They have started pre-production on the next Battlefield. I think they want to go back into like a 2 year cycle. Seems to be the plan. Um, and from what he has started hearing, it's gonna be kind of like in between 4 and 2042. So it's gonna be more of a modern day than we currently have. I imagine that Marcus Leto is working on a campaign for that game. That would be my guess. Is because there was also a big backlash that this game didn't have a campaign. Because it doesn't necessarily say he's working on a single game. It might just be he's doing campaign stuff for future games. So yeah, I'm glad EA is still all hands on deck with Battlefield. I just don't know how I feel about the changes being made at DICE, because it's an interesting choice, and I think it's very clear that a lot of the old people at DICE knew that there was a lot of change coming, so they were getting out whilst they still could, which I think sucks. But at the same time, I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah, same here. I wasn't the biggest fan of 2042. I kind of just dropped it ever since I've been playing Halo. I don't really plan on coming back much, just because I don't know. Battlefield's never really been my forte, I guess. I definitely enjoyed Battlefield 3 and back in the day and 4 to a certain extent, but yeah, it's definitely a very different shooter than the kind of shooters that I enjoy. Halo's kind of been up my alley lately, but still very glad to hear that Battlefield should hopefully have a bright future. A big campaign was definitely something that I was missing. Just because obviously I really liked 4's campaign. A lot of people didn't really play it, but I liked it back on like the launch of PS4. And Battlefield 3 to a certain extent, that also was a pretty fun campaign as well. So yeah, here's hopefully the future's bright. It does suck that Vince Zampella is kind of being moved over to Battlefield, just because I do like him at Respawn, working on, Apex and Titanfall and stuff like that. But it makes sense if you look at it in a business standpoint, that you have this guy that part of the studio you acquired. That's like, very credible. Probably put him on your money making machine that is Battlefield and try to steer it back to a better course. So yeah, it makes sense. Anyways, did you want to announce this new story that I really don't know about much at all?
Yeah, this came out today. I haven't actually seen it on Twitter. It popped up on my Steam this morning. But Ghostrunner, which was an FPS kind of hybrid runner shooter slasher game type thing, came out earlier this year. They announced last week that it was gonna be like some DLC coming out soon. And today they announced that Project Hell is what's coming out. It's a new sort of like standalone expansion coming out on the 27th of January, so just before my birthday, which is nice. It's going to basically be you playing as one of the bosses from the game, Hell, and it's her basically going through parts of the tower. I think they said it's a 6 level thing, so it's probably going to be a similar length to the main game. I think they said it's like $15 or something. So um, originally, apparently, it started as kind of like a small DLC, and it kind of grew and grew into its own kind of standalone thing. So I'm really excited for this. I really enjoyed Ghostrunner. I thought it was a great little game. So I'm excited to give this one a go. And it's not too far off either, which is nice.
Right on, right on. Yeah, I definitely played quite a bit of Ghostrunner. I never beat it, but I played I want to say a good chunk of that game. I think I was near the end of it, so that's cool to see that it's getting an expansion. Yeah, right on. DC Universe Online, apparently the developer of that is working on a Marvel-based MMO. I didn't actually hear about this, so did you want to give more details on that?
Yeah, it was kind of thrown under the rug. Nobody really heard too much about it, but they had an investor call with their publisher. I can't think what the studio's called. I know it's a Sony-owned developer, but I cannot think of the name. But basically, the publisher said that the studio is working on a Marvel-based MMO that was in their long-term plan. So basically, they were saying it wasn't part of fiscal year 22 or 23. So it's probably going to be late 23, early 24 before we even really know much about this game. I imagine they'll announce it in the next year or two, but it seems like it's a long way off. I'm definitely interested to see how this goes, because whilst DC Universe Online, you don't really hear about it too much in sort of the mainstream, it still has a ton of players and gets updates and expansions really regularly. And I used to be super into it, but kind of dropped off in more recent years just because they moved away from the more traditional MMO like expansion once a year with very story based content, and they now kind of do these mini DLCs every few months, which isn't really my thing. But if they kind of do a more modern take with the Marvel MMO and kind of do like a yearly expansion type thing, and have much more modern graphics and stuff, with New World and things, like I like the idea of MMOs. I just don't like how old a lot of them look these days, because obviously they don't really revamp them, because it would ruin a lot of the player base if they had to re-release a game like that. So I'm excited to see what this turns out to be. I think it could be really cool. I like DC Universe Online. I actually really liked Marvel Heroes when that came out. So I think there's room for like a Marvel MMO. So I'm excited to see what that ends up being.
Right on. Yeah, happy for fans of that. I know I played DC Universe Online back on like the PS3, I think, very briefly. That was pretty fun. Obviously, as a kid, I didn't really care for the whole MMO, but um, that definitely is really cool. So, looking forward to getting more details on that. Anyways, Mass Effect is apparently getting a TV show being developed by Amazon. So, yeah, I saw this on Twitter. I have a few friends that obviously are very big fans of Mass Effect, and they have very mixed feelings on this. Obviously, it's always exciting, but also kind of worrying whether or not it's going to come across well in live action. Do you know, is it confirmed that this is going to be like a live action adaptation, or is.
I think they've said it's live action, but the thing is, it hasn't been officially confirmed it's a thing yet, so we don't really know anything about it. But I think the report was that EA and Amazon are close to a deal on it. So I imagine it's still a ways off. I mean, if you look at how the Lord of the Rings show is happening, right? Like that was announced like 3 years ago at this point, and I think it's coming out next year. So I imagine it'll be a long time before we see anything major from it. Um, I'm kind of mixed feelings on it because I think Mass Effect has potential to work really well as a TV show, right? Like having this crew space hopping around the galaxy, going on adventures, Star Trek style, but with a big kind of overarching story about the Reapers and things. I think it could work really well, but at the same time, the game is so choice driven and relationship based that I don't know how you bring that across in a show without alienating some of the fan base because you'll have to go in a very specific direction and you can't offer the same choice that you do in the game. The only way I see it kind of working is if, they branch off and they don't tell like Commander Shepard's story and, they do something completely different in the world. But I have a feeling if they're doing a Mass Effect game or show, sorry, it's probably just going to be, the main plot of the games. Um, Either way, I'm excited to see what it ends up being. Like I said, I think overall it has a lot of potential to be a really cool show. Because honestly, like there's not a ton of great sci-fi shows, at least big ones, with really good budgets that can do effects and stuff well. But if they put the same kind of money into this they did with Lord of the Rings, this could be really promising.
Right on. I played the first hour or two of Mass Effect and then I dropped it. But it was pretty cool. Yeah, I swear I say that for like every game. But yeah, it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, that's cool if that does end up happening. Obviously, my stance on live action, like adaptations. I'm always open to it. I don't really put a lot of weight onto it. Obviously, you want it to be good and you want it to be faithful and like respect the original series. But at the same time, those always exist, right? So I usually try to take it, as like a lighthearted, fun side. But yeah. Anyways, in other news, Epic Games has acquired Harmonix. Based on the document note you left here, Charlie, I'm guessing you're not very excited about this acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, right? Harmonix are one of those devs. I used to absolutely adore them, right? They were behind originally Guitar Hero and then Rock Band. They obviously had a few flops. Rock Band 4 was one of them, even though it still does have a player base and they released stuff for it. They've done a few VR games here and there, which didn't really take off. And obviously, more recently, they did Fuser, which really did not do well. So I get why they would accept a deal like this, right? I'm sure Epic gave them a big bundle of money and said, "Hey, we know you guys aren't doing too well. Come work for us." Um, but the thing is, their announcement is very clear that they're basically done making their own stuff, at least for now. Um, they basically said in their statement that for now they're going to be helping Epic with their live events and music based stuff in Fortnite. That's basically what they're there for. Which I get, right? Because the music events are a very big thing in the game and they have been trying to evolve them more. And I think Harmonix is a good way to do that. They're a music based studio, so, it's who better to do it. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of talent there that could come up with some really cool rhythm based game ideas, and I think it would be a shame to waste that on just Fortnite content. So I do hope that eventually they do get a chance to go back to doing that. I'd honestly love to see them do it, get a chance to do Rock Band again, but I just don't. I think that market's long gone unless you kind of do it indie style like Clone Hero, which you can't really sell. Like you have to do that stuff unofficially because of music licensing and stuff. Because I think that was the biggest downfall with Rock Band 4 is like the DLC and that kind of thing. And obviously they made Mad Cats go under because of their manufacturing with like plastic guitars and stuff. So who knows? But for now, I'm disappointed. Like, it's a shame. They're a great developer, and I'd love to see them do more. Um, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens.
That is a shame if they're like tied to Fortnite live events now going forward. Like I get that, but at the same time, like you said, like I'm sure there was a lot of cool games they could get to use, and yeah, that's weird. Yeah, it is a shame. As you said though, I don't think there really is a big market for those kind of games anymore. I played
Yeah.
Guitar Hero back in the day with my dad, but like I don't see anyone wanting to do the same nowadays. Like at least in terms of like a big audience. I don't know. It's just how the industry has changed, right? It's just not really a big focus. It was big back on like PS3 days and stuff like that, but yeah, I just don't see that being a hit nowadays, which makes sense. They did some VR games as well, right? Or no?
Yes, they did a couple of VR games. They actually did a Rock Band VR game with Oculus, which never really took off. I think their biggest one they did. I can't think of the name. It's kind of
Was that the
lost
one with
me.
the
But
two pistols that you shot,
yeah,
or
so
no?
you had the two pistols and you kind of shot stuff to the beat. It was a really
Start with
cool
the
idea.
A. Start with the A or something like that.
Yeah, I honestly, I really enjoyed that game. It was just, it wasn't particularly great mechanically. Like, it had some issues with kind of figuring out where you were. It was very easy to get lost because it wasn't a clear kind of point of where you would be shooting next. It's not like Beat Saber where they're coming straight at you. And I think that was the biggest kind of downside. And I know they did try and make some changes to that to make it better. But overall, I don't think it did too well. Same with Fuser. Fuser did not do well for them at all.
That's a shame. Anyways, we'll move on to our next news story with Hitman 3. This one actually surprised me. Yeah, it's going to get a year 2 content, which is including new missions, locations, RTX support, and the big one for me at least, PCVR. So, yeah, I saw your quote tweet, I believe, Charlie, on this one, PCVR finally. They were so, like, quiet on PCVR. Obviously,
Yeah.
Hitman 3 was a game that had PSVR support at launch, and whenever they were asked on PCVR, they were always like, they didn't deny it. They were just like, at the moment working on PSVR, and they didn't really give us an answer. So nice to see it. It was probably something that they obviously had to deal with Sony, right, where there was like a year exclusivity probably or something like that, that they couldn't really talk about it. So nice to see that out and confirmed. I know the mode for Hitman 3 was, I think it got well received on PSVR, and I imagine it'll only be better on PCVR. So yeah, I haven't really played much of Hitman 3 besides like the opening level, and like I started the second level. God, that's like every game I've been talking about on the podcast, but now I'll have an excuse to go back on PCVR. So yeah, there's that. What are your thoughts on having just all the new content coming in year 2?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think the biggest surprise for me was PCVR. I honestly didn't think they were gonna do it. I thought they'd take a Resident Evil route and have the exclusivity and then just not be bothered to do the PCVR port. But it looked great. I watched the footage, and honestly, it seems like they've made a lot of changes to actually work with the hardware. They showed them using like Valve Index controllers and just freely moving around with the sticks and stuff, which obviously you can't do on PSVR. So I'm super excited to get my hands on it. I loved Hitman 3, and I obviously love VR, so I'm very excited to be able to play the whole game, new missions, and also go back and play like 1 and 2 in VR, because obviously you can do that. You can play literally all the content there. So yeah, I'm super excited about it. The fact that they are doing new stuff as well is great. It's obviously, I know Hitman 3 has done the best out of all three of the games for them as well, which is great to see. So yeah, I'm just excited we're getting more Hitman content because I didn't play any of the year 1 stuff, mainly because it wasn't new locations, so I wasn't too bothered about picking it up. And I know they didn't add too much to the existing locations during the events. It was more just new people to hunt down. So I might go back and play those. They haven't said yet how PCVR is going to work, because obviously right now it's on Epic, and I think it's coming to Steam with this release. I think it's on the 20th of January or something. So I don't know if it'll be using Steam VR, because you can play some VR games on Epic, and it kind of boots up Steam VR. So I'm not sure. They haven't sort of said how that's going to work yet, whether you'll get like some kind of upgrade or what. Um, Hopefully it all works, because they had to do that really, and I don't know if you had to do it, Brandon, but they had a really weird method of like transferring your save from
Oh
Hitman 2 to
yeah,
3. Um, Yeah, because they had like back at launch, because obviously one and two were on Steam, and then three was on Epic. So they had this whole like website which was completely broken at launch, to transfer your content you paid for on Steam over to Epic without having to buy any of it. And it was a real ball ache. And after it happens, they basically said, "Hey, you can't get this stuff back on Steam." So I assume they're not going to give you this stuff back on Steam when it does release, which I get, because I imagine it's not them. I imagine it was something to do with this whole Epic deal. But as long as I can play it in VR and I can play all the new content and stuff, I'll be happy. So yeah, I'm super looking forward to it. It's probably the thing I'm most excited for now, to be honest with you. Because there's not much else coming out before then. It's only like less than 2 months away, actually. So yeah, I'm excited to give that a go for sure.
Right on. That's great to hear. Anyways, did you want to introduce this last news story with Kojima Productions?
Yeah, so they haven't said too much about this, but it was kind of like a surprise story, that Kojima Productions have opened a new studio in LA, which is going to be focused on TV, movies, and music. So I know Kojima had said previously that he wanted to stretch out of just doing games, which I think makes sense. He has a very big passion for movies and TV. Um, and honestly, I'd love to see him do something outside of games, because he is an interesting man, and he clearly knows a lot about film and TV. Some of the most interesting stuff I see on Twitter is from him talking about films that he's watching. And he also watches a lot of unique stuff that I end up going and watching, that I haven't heard of. So yeah, he's definitely got a unique taste when it comes to that stuff. I don't know how closely he will work with the studio, or what they're going to be working on, whether it's more independent stuff or whether they're going to be working with studios or even on, Death Stranding IP and that kind of thing. um, but I think the music stuff makes sense, because I know Ludwig, is it Forselli, who does like the music? He did MGS5, and then Death Stranding. He's not working specifically with Kojima anymore. He's now freelance again, but he does. I think he has moved back to the US, so I think it makes sense that they have, a music studio there, because they'll probably bring him back to do a lot of music for, future projects and things. So yeah, I'm excited to see what this ends up being, because he's an interesting man, and I want to see him do more than just games.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That is really cool. Obviously, Kojima's just big in media in general, so it's nice to see him branch out and hopefully do some other stuff. Definitely seems like games is just one area he's interested in, obviously, so that's really cool to see. I know Josh Anderson will be very happy to hear about that.
And I
Anyways, we'll
think
move on. Yeah, what's up?
I was gonna say, and I think with that stuff as well, he has so many like friends and people he knows in those
That's true.
industries, that like he can get so much help with all that stuff. Like seeing him on Twitter, and he's like best mates with like Edgar Wright, and they're constantly like video calling each other, and all these different directors that worked on Death Stranding and stuff with him. I think it's really cool to see. So um, if we get like partnerships with those people and things on projects, that would be really cool.
That's very true. I didn't consider that. Anyways, we'll move on to our Game Awards section of the podcast. So, I guess we'll go over our nominees first. Yeah, just because that makes the most sense. Yeah, so I think we have our page pulled up. We're gonna skip through the esports section just because that doesn't really interest us, and obviously we don't really care about esports, and we don't really have a valid opinion anyway. So, yeah, we're gonna start with most anticipated games. So, I guess Charlie, if you wanted to start us off with those 5 games and what you ended up picking.
Yeah, so the 5 games for this one, we had Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, sequel to Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Starfield. Um, I don't think this will be a surprise to anyone. I've gone with God of War Ragnarok. Mainly because, so Elden Ring I'm not too bothered about. Starfield I'm not too bothered about. Horizon is like, I know I'm gonna enjoy it, but I'm not expecting like anything crazy from it. And Zelda, I just think is so far off that I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. Whereas God of War's in that middle ground of it's not super close, but it's also not super far away. So I'm excited to see more of that game. And just for that game in general, obviously the last one was amazing. So yeah, that's what I voted for.
Nice. I went with Elden Ring. Yeah, it's close, right? And it's just gonna be straight up my alley. I really can't wait to dive into that, and I've made comparisons to Breath of the Wild. It's like the one I haven't felt this way in a game in a while, where like I can't wait for it to come out because I know I'm gonna be there like probably at 9 p.m. when it like officially unlocks, and I'll be playing a few hours. I really only do that for like select games I'm really excited about. I think the last game I did that was like Returnal or maybe Ratchet and Clank. But I'm definitely going to do that again with Elden Ring. I'm looking forward to that. The other ones do interest me. I think I've been pretty vocal on God of War and Horizon just being, sequels to games I've loved on PS4. Horizon I've revisited, and I don't know if I really care about it too much anymore. But definitely God of War, I'm looking forward to that. Zelda would probably be up there with Elden Ring, but it's just everything we've seen looks very similar to Breath of the Wild, and they haven't really shown us that new world yet. That's the big thing I'm looking for, is I want a new world to explore, and I'm still like light on details on how exactly that's going to look like. So hopefully we'll get an update on that game soon, but obviously I'm very excited for that one as well. Starfield, not really up my alley, Bethesda games just really aren't my thing. So yeah. Anyways, we'll move on to the next section, which is best debut indie. The 5 games in this category are The Artful Escape, The Forgotten City, Kenna, Bridge of Spirits, Sable, and Valheim. So, Charlie, what did you put for your best debut indie?
So I went with Kenna. I think that's gonna be the easiest winner here, to be honest with you. I think it was an absolutely amazing game, especially from a studio that's never worked on a game before, right? Like they're primarily an animation studio, and I
Did you
think
beat
that
it?
came across well. Sorry?
Did you beat it or no?
No, I do need to go back because I'm so close to the end. I need to go back and play it. But I've just been playing so many other things that I just haven't gotten back to it. But I might try and do it this weekend, actually. We'll see. Because I know I'm so close to the end. I just need to do it. Yeah, when I'm not playing games, I'm at work so much now that I just keep forgetting about it. But I need to add that back to the top of my list.
Right on. I also put Kena Bridge of Spirits. Yeah, it's the only one I've like fully beat. The only other game I played here was Valheim. I actually played this with you a lot, Charlie, back. But I think both of us really didn't click with it as much as everyone
Yeah.
else was praising it. Yeah, Kena's like the big one here. I've heard really good things about the Forgotten City as well. But yeah, I just haven't played it, so I can't really say anything on it. I definitely think Kena will win as well. So yeah. Did you want to skip content creator, or did you have thoughts on it? Because I didn't vote for
Yeah, we'll
this,
skip
but
that one. I voted a random person. So.
all right, cool. So best multiplayer. The nominees for this category are Back for Blood, Knockout City, It Takes Two, Monster Hunter Rise, New World, and Valheim. What did you put for best multiplayer?
I went with It Takes Two on this one. Um, I just think the thing is with this category, right? Back for Blood I enjoyed, but overall it wasn't particularly strong a game, right? It had quite a few issues. Knockout City, just I haven't really played it. Monster Hunter Rise, more Monster Hunter. Valheim didn't really click with me, and New World is just another MMO. I think It Takes Two did a lot of unique stuff, and I think unlike A Way Out, it did a lot of it to a very high level. And throughout that entire game, even though it was pretty lengthy, I think it was strong throughout, and I really enjoyed it. I do want to replay it at some point because I did love that game. So yeah, that is the one I went with.
I also went with It Takes Two. Just everything else was kind of weak. Like, obviously, Knockout City, I'm not going to vote for. Monster Hunter Rise, I didn't play. New World, I don't really care about that. Valheim, we just went over. And Back for Blood, I think, was the only real contender here for me. But even then, I think, I was pretty underwhelmed with it. I definitely think they still need to work on that quite a bit. And It Takes Two is just, is easily just the best game, in my opinion, in this list for me. So, yeah. Anyways, we move on to Best Sports and Racing. Nominees in this category are F1 2021, FIFA 2022, Forza Horizon 5, Hot Wheels Unleashed, and Riders Republic. I guess just to change things up, I'll say what I voted for first here. I put Forza Horizon 5. I've only played like an hour. I mean, for my, to defend myself, it's because I've waited to get an Xbox controller. Yeah, that came in just yesterday, so I'm going to be using that for Forza Horizon 5. I haven't played anything else besides Riders Republic I played the beta with, and I really enjoyed that, but I just know I'm going to drop a lot more hours in Forza Horizon 5, and I'm looking forward to playing it. It's also probably easily the most impressive game I've seen in the Forza series so far from what I played. So yeah, what did you put for Best Sports and Racing?
So I also voted for Forza Horizon 5. I haven't actually played Forza Horizon 5 at all, mainly because it's like 90 gig on PC, and I just know I'll download it, I'll play it for like an hour, and then I won't touch it because that's what happened with 3 and 4. I absolutely loved the first one, and I played a bit of two, but three and four I just only played a few hours, and then have just never gone back to it. But from what I've seen and review wise, it visually looked insane. Um, I think they always do a great job at Playground Games, which is why I'm super excited to see how Fable turns out. Because they're great at making these big worlds that just look amazing to explore. Um, I was tempted to put Riders Republic because like you, I did really enjoy the beta, but I haven't played the full game. I have been quite close to picking it up a few times because it has started to go on sale, as Ubisoft games typically do. But I'm still gonna wait a little bit on that one because I know it will keep going down in price, right? So I'm just waiting for when it goes down to sort of like 15-20 quid, something like that, and I'll pick it up. Also, Hot Wheels Unleashed. I've heard a lot of good things about that. But again, I haven't played it because I didn't want to buy it at full price. So I can't really say too much about that one myself.
I've also heard really good things about Hot Wheels Unleashed, but yeah, like you haven't played it either. So yeah, we'll move on to the next category: Best Sim slash Strategy. The nominees here are Age of Empires 4, Evil Genius 2, World Domination, Humankind, Inscription, and Microsoft Flight Simulator. I honestly haven't played any of these games. I just put Microsoft Flight Simulator just because the concept of like taking geographical like real world data and like merging that into a game is really really fascinating to me. But yeah, that's why I voted for that. What about you, Charlie?
Yeah. So I was thinking of putting Age of Empires 4. I have played a bit of it, not much. But honestly, it's so similar to all the other Age of Empires games that I was like, it doesn't really do anything unique. Um, Microsoft Flight Simulator is what I ended up going with. Um, I've wanted to play this game multiple times, but it is such a pain to install that I just have never done it. It takes me back to when I was a kid and would install PC games where you'd have to leave it on literally all day to install something so small. Whereas this is you have to leave it on game to install like 150 gig, and I can't be asked to do it, man. It's just such a big install. But visually and like just the scope of the game, I think is insane. Um, and the work they've done on that is so impressive. I think it's an easy win for them here. I think if anything else wins, they're kind of robbing Asobo, to be honest.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I think that's another easy lock alongside Kenna for best debut indie.
Yeah.
Anyways, in Best Family, we have It Takes Two, Mario Party Superstars, New Pokemon Snap, Super Mario 3D World, and WarioWare Get It Together. Charlie, what'd you put for Best Family?
Honestly, I struggled with this one. Um, I was thinking It Takes Two, but I was like, honestly, I don't see that being a family game. It's about parents getting divorced, okay? That ain't a
true.
game for kids. So,
That is true.
so I didn't vote for It Takes Two. Um, Mario Party, I've heard, isn't that great. So, yeah, Pokemon Snap is a game about taking pictures. That ain't no family game. Um,
Can we talk about
3D
why
World,
there's a port here?
and then
I mean,
yeah,
granted, there's new
3D
content,
World
but come
isn't
on.
isn't a new game. And plus, like, I don't know. I think 3D World is 4 player. I think it's Bowser's Fury is only two. I ended up going with WarioWare just because my boy Wario needs some respect on his name. So, so I voted for that one. But I haven't played those ones. I've only played It Takes Two and the original version of 3D World. So
That's me. I mean, I played the port, like I started it, but yeah, like I'm not gonna vote for a game I haven't played, and then I just put It Takes Two just because I want to see something besides Nintendo for once when Best
yeah,
Family. I think that'd be hilarious. But I do agree, WarioWare is a throwback. I haven't picked that up yet, but I'm close to just because obviously WarioWare is one of those classic games in the DS that are just really fun mini games to pick up. But yeah, I went with It Takes Two just because I want to see Nintendo not win Best Family for once. I think that'd be hilarious. Anyways, we'll go on to Best Fighting. I actually didn't vote for this one because I haven't played any of them. I've heard mixed things about Demon Slayer. I guess I'll list off the nominees first. So there's the Demon Slayer game. I'm not going to read the full title because that'll be very hard. There's Guilty Gear Strive, Melty Blood Type, Lumina, Nickelodeon All Star
yeah.
Brawl, and Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. So I'm not even going to say anything here because I don't have any, foot in this race. So Charlie, what'd you put for Best Fighting?
I just want to know what Melty Blood's about. What is that name,
Same.
man?
What the hell is
That's
that?
such a
Melty
weird
Blood.
name. But I went with Nickelodeon All Star Brawl mainly because I've heard actually decent things about it. I love that kind of game. I want to play it. I really want to play it, but I just don't want to buy it. I'm waiting to get a copy in at work, because it's the Christmas period right now. We're there pretty late in the evening, and just nobody comes in. So we have got a Switch set up, and we've been playing Smash like at the end of the day and stuff. But I'm really hoping we get a copy of this in so we can play it at work. Because yeah, I'm super interested in it. Actually, is that something? Did we talk about the Warner Brothers game?
We talked
Did we
about that,
talk?
yeah, like three
Did
weeks
we talk
ago.
about that a few weeks ago? I couldn't even
2
remember.
weeks ago.
But
We
yeah,
did.
I do want to play this one. I've heard good things, so I just put the vote in for that. I haven't played any of them, so
Yeah, I mean, the Demon Slayer one looks fun for me, but I've had friends only say bad things about it, so
yeah.
I'm avoiding until there's a sale. Yeah. Anyways, next category is something that interests me: best RPG. For once, I've actually played 3 of the games on this, which is just kind of crazy.
How many have
So
you
yeah,
beaten?
I have beaten 1.
Okay.
I've had, in my defense, I've beaten Cyberpunk. I'm definitely gonna beat SMT5 soon, and Tales of Arise I'm like halfway through. I'm like 15 hours in. So surprisingly, out of like these long ass RPGs, I've actually probably played the most out of these ones. So yeah, the nominees here are Cyberpunk 2077, Monster Hunter Rise, Scarlet Nexus, Shin Megami Tensei 5, and Tales of Arise. Yeah, this one wasn't too hard for me, just because obviously I kind of have to vote for Shin Megami Tensei 5. But I will say, Cyberpunk 2077 definitely gave a decent run for its money, just because I really enjoyed it. Like, I've always been tempted to put that as my game of the year last year, just because I absolutely loved it. But yeah, at the end, I'm going to put it to Shin Megami Tensei 5. I think I've talked about this before in the past, but it's easily like such an evolution of the Megaton series, and the fact that, you know, it's just kind of like blew my expectations out of the water in terms of like the world and everything. Just something I didn't see coming. So yeah, what about you, Charlie? What'd you put for best RPG? I think I know. There's a lot
Yeah, I
on
was
here
gonna
that you
say,
played.
I think you know, just like think I knew what you would go with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I went with Cyberpunk. Obviously, I think I voted for it as my favorite game of last year. So, or no, I didn't. I went with Half Life, didn't I? But I did really like Cyberpunk a lot. I think I said it was like my favorite story of last year, or at least it was up there. I remember I voted it for at least one or two things when we did our game of the year stuff. Yeah, definitely the Last of Us Part Two. Um, but yeah, no, it was kind of a given, right? I really enjoyed Cyberpunk. I think they do a really good job. I think the role playing could be better, but I haven't played the other games to really judge. I have actually played a bit of SMT5. I did pick it up and I've played like an hour. But I can't really say much about that because I haven't played much. But yeah, I love Cyberpunk, so I had to go with that one.
Yeah, SMT5 has a slow start, so yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, I gathered
And
that from the hour I played.
yeah, in terms of like what I think will win, I'll probably say Tales of Arise. I feel like that reviewed really well, so I
Yeah,
definitely
ain't no
probably
way
see that.
Cyberpunk's winning
I
this.
was gonna say, there's no way a Cyberpunk would win this, just
Yeah.
because that'd be hilarious. Um, yeah. Anyways, we'll move on to Best Action Adventure. This is actually a pretty cool category this year. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and Resident Evil Village. I guess I'll talk about what I put here first. I played a decent amount of these games. I mean, I played 4 of them so far. I've only beaten 2 of them. But I ended up going for Resident Evil Village. Like, I was tempted whether or not to put Metroid Dread, but like at the end of the day, I wouldn't say that's like my favorite in terms of action adventure. I like it for other reasons, but obviously I'm only 3 hours in. And just Resident Evil Village, if it was like anything this year that I think it should win, it's best action adventure. I think Village was a solid game this year in terms of, you know, when I think of action adventure and like that whole description there, combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving, literally describes Resident Evil for me. So for me, it's a no-brainer. It's Resident Evil Village. What'd you put, Charlie?
So I kind of struggled on this one because um I enjoyed Resident Evil Village, but I didn't think it was amazing, right? I really liked Rift Apart.
Rift Apart.
um, I haven't played Psychonauts 2, but it does look really good. Same with Metro Dread. I haven't played it, but it does look pretty good.
So we know what you
But I
voted for now.
had to give it to Guardians of the Galaxy because I want it to win something, and I don't think it's gonna win, which I think is gonna be a shame because it is a very good game. So I wanted to vote for it where I could. So that's where I've gone for it here. I don't think it's necessarily the strongest pick for this category. Like when you read the description, I don't think it is the best game that combines combat with traversal and stuff like that. But the combat's fun. But and the gameplay overall is fun. But I just enjoyed that game too much that I couldn't not vote for it. So
It's weird for me because I've wanted to go back to Guardians, but like for me, the gameplay isn't that fun. I don't know. It just felt
right.
very stiff playing Peter, and like I've heard the story gets really good, so that's probably gonna be my main reason for going back to it. But yeah, it's just I always keep it's always like at the very end of the list for me of games I can go back to, but I definitely do want to, especially since it's not that long of a game. I also want to say, since this is like the first category that Ratchet and Clank is here, it's weird because I really enjoyed playing Ratchet and Clank, but I feel like ever since I beat it, I kind of is forgettable for me, or at least I don't have like the best impression of it. I was talking to Josh about that a while ago. But yeah, in terms of what I think will win, though, I think it's going to be between Metroid Dread and Psychonauts 2, just because Metroid Dread is reviewed really highly and Psychonauts 2 as well did. Yeah, I want to go to Psychonauts 2 and play that, but that's definitely going to be like next year for me. So yeah. Anyways, we'll move on to Best Action Game. And here we have Back 4 Blood, Chivalry 2, Deathloop, Far Cry 6, and Returnal. So I put Returnal here. I was debating on putting Deathloop just because I feel like the gun combat's pretty solid in that game. I think it's really good. But if anything, I think Returnal probably impressed me the most in terms of like its combat. I don't know. I just really enjoyed Returnal's combat. I think it's obviously the strongest part of that game. You know, Housemarque, that's kind of what you think about, right? Is its combat. So yeah, I ended up going for Returnal in this case. If there's anything I want Returnal to win at all, it's definitely Best Action Game. But I could see a case being made for Deathloop or even Back 4 Blood. Charlie, what did you put for Best Action Game?
Yeah, I was in a similar position to you. I was kind of struggling between Deathloop and Returnal. I ended up going with Deathloop. I do think that combat loop is just so good. And the combat does feel so satisfying. I There are a few things I wish it felt a bit better. With how movement and stuff works, but overall, I really enjoy the combat and stuff in that game, so I had to go with that one.
Yeah, that's definitely yeah, respectable. Anyways, we'll move on to Best VR/AR. So yeah, we got Hitman 3, I Expect You to Die 2, Lone Echo 2, Resident Evil 4, and Sniper Elite VR. Some pretty decent games. I actually thought this year was kind of quiet for VR, but when I saw this list, I'm like, we actually did get some pretty big games here. There's only one I did play, though, and that's Resident Evil 4 VR. I don't think I was going to put anything else, even if I did play them. Maybe Lone Echo 2. But yeah, Resident Evil 4 VR is a no-brainer for me, just because anyone that knows me knows that Resident Evil 4 is one of my favorite games of all time, and at least in terms of atmosphere, right? It's always up there with Bloodborne, so the fact that you could put on that VR headset and be taken to that world is just crazy. I'm probably going to play some more tonight now that I have some free time. But yeah, that was a no-brainer for me, but yeah, I imagine you might have a different pick, but yeah, Charlie, what'd you put for Best VR?
Yeah, so I struggled with this one because honestly, none of the ones on here kind of stood out to me. Hitman 3 I haven't played in VR, so I can't really speak for that one. I Expect You to Die 2 I haven't played, but I've heard it's, just more of the same of the first one. There's nothing crazy good there. Lone Echo 2 I still haven't played, and I probably won't for a while, to be honest, just because I've got so many other games. But I've heard it is very good and has a great story, and the gameplay is just as good as the original. Resident Evil 4, I've enjoyed what I've played, but in the end it is a game that has been out for many years, right? Like, it's just been ported to VR. It's not something original. Same with kind of Sniper Elite VR, right? Like, it's a semi port slash remake of the games into VR, and I've played a bit of it, but I didn't think it was anything special. So I ended up going with Lone Echo 2. But yeah, it was a weird one because I was debating putting Resi 4, but in the end I did put Lone Echo 2 because it's the one game there that I think really is built for VR and that has had love and care put into it more than any of these. It's been worked on for a long time. So yeah, that's why I went with it. I think Resident Evil 4 will win, just because name alone. I think a lot of people will just vote for that one. But yeah, I think Lone Echo 2 probably deserves it more than any of those.
Yeah, it's like the one like big new VR exclusive this year is Lone Echo 2, so that probably
Yeah.
deserves to win, but I had to put Resi 4. Anyways, we'll move on to our next category, and that's innovation and accessibility. So the nominees in this category are Far Cry 6, Forza Horizon 5, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and The Veil Shadow of the Crown. I actually really don't know what each game had in terms of accessibility, but I remember Insomniac kept tweeting about like so many of the different accessibility options that they had in Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and I know that Sony games in general always have a lot of that stuff in it. So I did vote for Ratchet & Clank, but honestly this category doesn't really apply to me since I don't really know too much about, what games has which features. So yeah, that's why I voted for Ratchet and Clank. What about you, Charlie?
Yeah, much like you, I don't really have, because it doesn't apply to me, so I don't know too much about what options each of the games had, right? But I did go with Forza Horizon 5 because I know that game did have a lot of great options that people really enjoyed. I think it had a lot of like voice stuff and things, because I know Microsoft have really been pushing accessibility for the past few years, so that's why I decided to go with Forza.
Right on, right on. Anyways, we'll move on to best community support. This one actually just like confused me because like don't they have like best ongoing game and best community support, but I think this one's more gearing towards like the community side of it, and like updates and patches. So the nominees in this category are Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy 14 Online, Fortnite, and No Man's Sky. This one honestly was hard for me because like the first three I don't really play any of those anymore. Fortnite and No Man's Sky. Between those, like this year, Fortnite didn't really have like that crazy of a year, but No Man's Sky continues to get updates, and honestly, I decided just to go to that just because, yeah, I'm always surprised by what they add in No Man's Sky, and I think this year they had a pretty big year. I remember they like consistently kept dropping a lot of patches, and we kept talking about it for quite a few episodes. So yeah, that's why I went with No Man's Sky. But what about you, Charlie?
Yeah, I also went with No Man's Sky. It was mainly down to the fact that they do have a pretty good consistency with their patches and updates. They're pretty responsive on Twitter. Sean is very like open with the community these days, and I think he does a good job with that. Um, and whilst I think like Apex and Destiny, even Final, I know Final Fantasy is probably gonna win this because I know the community absolutely love that game and they're very responsive. But like Fortnite, Destiny, and Apex in particular, they don't really stand out to the community in particular. They're more just, your generic, here's the new season, here's this week's update kind of thing. So, yeah, that's why I went with No Man's Sky. But I think Final Fantasy is going to win that one.
I definitely agree. I think Final Fantasy's had a strong year based on the friends that I've had that are into that. Anyways, we'll move on to best mobile game. This is actually a category I didn't vote for because I just don't play mobile games. But the nominees in this category are Fantasian, Genshin Impact, League of Legends Wild Rift, Marvel Future Revolution, and Pokemon Unite. So, Charlie, what'd you vote for?
So I went with League Wild Rift because I like
Surprise,
League.
surprise.
I'm biased. Also the mobile game's pretty good. I haven't played much of it recently. I played a decent amount when it first came out. But it's a cool new way to play League. I think Genshin will win just because Genshin's massive and it has a massive fan base. I have played a bit of Future Revolution, not much. Honestly, it's probably the most impressive out of the games there, aside from Genshin. Like, it is a super ambitious kind of like MMO style game on mobile, but visually it looks really good for a mobile game. But I haven't played much of it, so I can't really talk on it. I think it's quite pay to win as well. Pokemon Unite, I played a decent amount of on the Switch, but it's kind of just a League ripoff, to be honest. So I was like, I'd rather just vote for the original thing. I'll go with League. So, but yeah, that's what I went with.
Fantasian, I've heard is pretty good. I know Jason Schreier
I haven't
was
actually
talking
heard of that
about
one.
that.
That's the one I
It's
haven't
apparently
heard of.
the developer behind it's known for like Final Fantasy and stuff like that. So apparently
Okay.
it's like a big guy behind it. So yeah, I actually downloaded it like a while ago, but I never ended up playing on my phone. But like, yeah, that's surprising. I just saw Jason Schreier tweet it one day, and I looked it up on the store, and it looked pretty cool. Yeah, I think Genshin will probably win just because Genshin's massive. But honestly, I could see any of these winning just by surprise. Anyways, we move on to the next category at Best Indie Game. The nominees in this category are 12 Minutes, Death's Door, Inscription, Kena Bridge of Spirits, and Loop Hero. So I ended up voting for Kena once again. It's the only one on here I've beaten. I've actually played Loop Hero, and I played 12 Minutes. I do want to play Death's Door. I've heard really good things about that. But yeah, Kena is the ultimate one that I ended up beating this year, and it's probably my favorite out of all the ones I played. It's definitely one of my favorite. The only one I could see possibly topping it is just Death's Door, but obviously I haven't played that. But yeah, I think Kena is probably going to be the one that wins here, but Yeah. What about you, Charlie?
Yeah, I also went with Kana, and I think out of all of them, it's the most likely to win. Like you, Death's Door could also happen, but I think Kana, more people have just seen that game and will just vote for it on visuals alone. So, but yeah, it definitely deserves it out of all of these ones. The only other one I've played here is 12 minutes, but I haven't played enough to really be able to give it the vote. So, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll go on to the next category, which is Best Ongoing. So the nominees in this category are Apex Legends, Final Fantasy XIV Online, Fortnite, Genshin Impact, and Call of Duty Warzone. I ended up just putting Fortnite for this one because it's the only one I really consistently still play. Yeah, that's my whole reasoning behind it. What'd you put, Charlie?
I haven't played it, but I went for Final Fantasy XIV just because I know that the fan base absolutely loves that game, and I know that they are very consistent with their content, and are always there for the community. So that's what I went with because I know they are community first developers over there. So, yeah, I think they deserve it the most. But I could see this going to Genshin or Final Fantasy. I don't think it'll go to Fortnite just because at this point I think the game has kind of died from the mass hype, of the mainstream, that I just don't think it'll get the votes anymore. Same with Apex and COD, to be honest. Like, they have big player counts, but just not the people who vote at these events. So,
Yeah. I would probably vote for Final Fantasy XIV Online, but I just don't really vote for stuff I haven't played. But I know that it's definitely been big for the community. And I even saw like a clip, I think, when the guy had to delay it. He was like crying, and he like took responsibility for it. So I was like, damn, that's crazy, and that's wholesome as hell. But yeah. Anyways, I don't know if you voted for this one. I didn't vote for this one, but Games for Impact. The nominees in this category are Before Your Eyes, Boyfriend Dungeon, Chikori, A Colorful Tale, Life is Strange, True Colors, and No Longer Home. I haven't played any of these, like I said. The only one, obviously, I've really heard about on this list is Life is Strange, but I haven't played it, so I can't really say. But yeah, what'd you put, if you put anything?
I voted for Life is Strange because it's the one I've heard more stuff about. I haven't heard of No Longer Home or Before Your Eyes, so I can't comment on those. I've heard
Boyfriend
of
Dungeon
Boyfriend
sounds
Dungeon,
actually...
but I'll be honest, I didn't realize it was a game going for like thought-provoking stuff. So I didn't go with that one. And Chicory, A Colorful Tale, I also didn't know was like some weird, game based on social meaning and things or a message. So, yeah, I went with Life is Strange because I know that that's the kind of thing that series goes for, and people really enjoyed it. So, yeah, I went with that one. But I haven't played them, so.
Yeah. All right, we'll go on to the next category, which is Best Performance. We have Erica Mori as Alex Chen, Giancarlo Esposito as Antoni Castillo in Far Cry 6, Jason Kelly as Colt Vaughn in Deathloop, Maggie Robertson as Lady Demetrius, whatever you call her name, tall lady, Resident Evil Village, and, oh god, Ozima Akaha as Juliana Blake. And that's obviously in Deathloop. I actually put Jason Kelly as Colt Vaughn in this one just because I thought Colt Vaughn was really well voice acted. From like the few hours I did play of Deathloop, just stood out. I know probably Giancarlo Esposito will probably win, but yeah, obviously I'm just haven't played Far Cry 6, so I usually just don't vote for that. But yeah, what'd you put, Charlie?
So I wasn't sure on this one because honestly, I think this year it's kind of weak.
This week, yeah. There's like no Sony game for first.
Yeah, there isn't any performances here that really stand out to me. I ended up going with the last one. I don't know how to say her name. I feel really bad.
Juliana Blake.
But
yeah,
Juliana
is...
Blake. I think she was like it was basically torn for me between Jason Kelly and this lady, because I did really enjoy Deathloop, and I think they both do a pretty decent job. I went with her because she plays Alex Vance. So.
Oh, she does. Oh, is she the new one? The new Alex?
She's the new voice of Alex in Half-Life Alex, and I think she does a pretty good job in that game.
I was gonna say, when I heard her voice, it sounded like Alex in a way. That's funny.
So yeah, so that is why I went with her. But there was no, it wasn't like, otherwise it was, I had no way of basically picking one or the other. I think they both do a good job. I think Colt, it can be quite funny at times, but I think overall she has a stronger voice. So yeah, I went with her.
Right on, right on. We'll go on to best audio design. We have Deathloop, Forza Horizon 5, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Resi Village, and Returnal. For this one, it was probably like a tie between like Ratchet and Clank, Returnal, and Resi Village. But I ended up going for Resi Village just because I feel like the sound was really good in that game, and I remember playing like the demo when that first came out on the PS5, like when you're in like the dungeon, right, and just hearing the sounds all around you and like hearing the shit drop behind you and trying to like scare you. I think Resi Village had a really solid audio design. Yeah, I remember Returnal also being good in that aspect, but Resi Village was just the most memorable for me. What about you, Charlie?
Yeah, I was kind of torn between Resi Village and Returnal. I ended up going with Returnal. I think the 3D audio in that game was just something else whilst you're in combat. The way it worked was just so well, and you could it was almost to the point where you could close your eyes and you could almost tell where enemies were. Like you could probably aim and hit stuff, right? Like it's done so well, and I think overall that's just kind of the key to good audio and sound design. And yeah, some of the like the the sounds and things are so unique and weird in that game, and they just add to the atmosphere. So yeah, I went with Returnal.
Yeah, that was also a very solid pick. It was close for me as well. All right, we'll move on to best score in music, and the nominees in this case are The Artful Escape, Cyberpunk 2077, Deathloop, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Near Replicant. I can already tell you for sure that Near Replicant's probably gonna vote for win this one, just because I know that had a really good soundtrack. Everyone I've talked to has always talked about how good the Near games are in terms of music. I actually have a college friend that had like a Near sticker, and he was telling me just like yesterday how good that soundtrack was. But for me personally, I ended up putting just Cyberpunk 2077. It's the only game really here I've beaten, and I really enjoyed the music of that game. I still like listen to Chipping In and all that stuff. Yeah, it had such a good soundtrack in my opinion. Guardians of the Galaxy had like a lot of licensed music. I don't really remember anything from like the first 2 to 3 hours of like original music that really stood out to me. So I didn't vote for that just because a lot of that was licensed. But yeah, what'd you put, Charlie?
I was actually really stuck on this one. So I really enjoyed all the music in Cyberpunk. I think the original music is great. I also think some of the licensed stuff they did was really cool. Same with Deathloop. I thought some of the music in that it really had a cool vibe. That 70s kind of spy esque action, buddy cop style music. I absolutely loved. And then Guardians of the Galaxy has a really great licensed soundtrack, but I also think it has some really good original music that is quite heartfelt in some scenes, and I think it's especially the album they recorded for that game. They recorded an entire album of rock music for like the fictional Star Lord band, and some of the tracks there are also really good. So I ended up going with Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it has a really strong track list in general. Um, I'm not sure what will win because, like you said, I know Nier is known for good music, especially Automata. But I personally have not heard any of the Replicant tracks, so I don't. I honestly couldn't tell you if there was anything in that that was super memorable because I have not heard anyone talk about Replicant soundtrack. So I honestly don't know what that is like. Um, but I could see it going to any of these. I think Guardians might win it purely because people go, "Oh, it has cool licensed music." Sure, we'll go with that.
I would hate that one
But
personally.
I don't know. But I went with Guardians.
Yeah, I could see this go. I think it's gonna go to either Cyberpunk or Near Replicant. It could go to Artful Escape. Maybe that has like a really good soundtrack, and I just never played the game. That possibly is the case. But yeah, just personally, I believe it'll be Near Replicant or Cyberpunk. But I voted for Cyberpunk. Anyways, we'll go on to Best Art Direction. So the nominees in this case are The Artful Escape, Deathloop, Kena Bridge of Spirits, Psychonauts 2, and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I put Kena here. It's just so visually stunning. Just every single time that goes into a cutscene, and it's like a Pixar movie. It's just jaw dropping for me. Ratchet and Clank also looked really good, but like it had really good graphics. But I wouldn't say anything in terms of like its art direction. Was really good. But yeah, I also consider Deathloop just because, as you mentioned before, it has a really cool look and feel to it. That kind of like noir '70s feel to it. But I just still went with Kane Bridge of Spirits at the end of the day. What about you?
Yeah, so also went with Kana on this one. Again, I think it just has such a amazing visual look to it. that just stands out. I was tempted to put Psychonauts because it does have such a unique psychedelic look, but I just haven't, I haven't played it myself, so I can't really speak for that one. So yeah, I went with Kana on that one.
Nice, nice, nice. All right, we're going into our final three categories here. Best narrative. So the nominees in this case are Deathloop, It Takes Two, Life is Strange, True Colors, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Psychonauts 2. I put It Takes Two. It's the only game here I've beaten, and I really liked the story in that game. Even though it was kind of dragged on, I think it was really good for the kind of scale of that game. I can already tell you, though, I think Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy will win, or Life is Strange, just because I know both of those games had apparently really good stories. But yeah, I can imagine I already know what you're putting, Charlie, but if you want to tell everyone.
So yeah, I went with Guardians of the Galaxy. I really hope it wins because honestly, I do think it has an amazing narrative. I probably would have gone with It Takes Two if I hadn't gone with Guardians. But honestly, I don't think that I think it's a decent narrative, but I don't think it does anything special. Honestly, I don't
You
think
can see where
anything
it's
here
going.
has anything crazy. Honestly, I don't know why Deathloop is there. Probably the weakest part of that game. And I really like Deathloop, but I think the narrative is probably the weakest part. But Guardians is just, yeah, I think it's written extremely well. I think it's paced really well. Just everything about it is really really well done. And it shocked me a lot. I didn't think it would be as good as it was. So yeah, I put Guardians of the Galaxy.
Cool to hear. All right, second to last category, best game direction. Nominees in this case are Deathloop, It Takes Two, Returnal, Psychonauts 2, and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. I put Deathloop in this case just because it's really the only game here that, in my opinion, really like changed. Like it's like, yeah, it's like really the only game here that's different for me. Like It Takes Two, those kind of games have been done before. Returnal is just like a roguelike, right? Psychonauts 2 is a really good platformer, and Ratchet & Clank has easily been done before. Deathloop, well, it's like there was mixed reception on whether or not like it's anything amazing, although like the critic reception is really high. I think it's pretty impressive how they had like 4 locations with like 3 different time zones, I believe, like in terms of like time periods you could visit them in, and how those locations change depending on when you visit them. I really like the way they kind of blended roguelike and linear storytelling in that game. So I put Deathloop.
So I ended up going with It Takes Two, mainly because I think that it's just got such a good vision behind it, and it's clear from the get go that it has been like superbly like paced by Joseph and his team, right? Like they know exactly what they wanted to do with it. I think it does a much better job than A Way Out of pacing the different gameplay mechanics throughout the entire design of it. I just think overall it does an amazing job with that. I was tempted to put Deathloop, but I think It Takes Two just does a more interesting kind of direction with it all. So yeah, that is what I went with.
Solid pick. All right, and now we're on to the big Game of the Year category, and the nominees in this case are Deathloop, It Takes Two, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet& Clank Rift Apart, and Resident Evil Village. So, yeah, I've already been vocal on this. I think a lot of the games here are like very B tier. There's nothing that really stands out for me. I can't give it to Deathloop because obviously I haven't beaten it. It Takes Two was solid, but I wouldn't say it was like my favorite game this year. Metroid Dread I'm really liking, and as I said, I think it's potential to be Game of the Year. I actually don't even think I have a Game of the Year currently. Psychonauts 2 haven't played. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart definitely is not like my favorite game this year. I currently have it as Resident Evil Village. I think that's definitely been my favorite experience this year in terms of just blending combat, story, narrative, and all that. I really like how they moved the Ethan storyline in that game, despite it being very weird in typical Capcom fashion. But I definitely think Metroid Dread possibly could beat it, depending on how the game evolves currently from what I've played. But obviously I haven't beaten it yet, so I can't give it to that. So Resi Village is what I put. What about you, Charlie?
Um, so yeah, it was a tough one. Honestly, I ended up going with It Takes Two. Um, Mainly because from the second I first played that game, I said that I think it could be Game of the Year for me, and I still feel like it could be. I'm not 100% sure. There are other games that I was kind of torn between, both on this list and the ones that aren't. But for here, I think I have to give it to It Takes Two. I think it's such a well done game. I hope it gets the recognition it deserves. I don't think it's gonna win this. It's tough to say what will win, to be honest. Um,
I don't know. I feel like Deathloop will win just because I've seen like that game critically like reviewed really
Yeah.
well. But I could also see possibly even like Metroid Dread or Psychonauts 2. Those games also reviewed really well.
See, I don't
But
think it'll
yeah.
be Metroid just because I don't think the player vote will be there. And I know
How
the
big
player
does the
vote
player
is
vote count for? It's like 10%?
I think it was like 20% last year, wasn't it? I think they upped it. Um, I'm not sure, but I think the player vote will probably sway it a little bit, and I don't think it'll be with Metroid. Um, I think overall people might lean towards Ratchet to be honest, but I mainly because it's Sony, right? Um,
If Ratchet wins, I'll be
but
disappointed because I honestly don't think it deserves it. like
but yeah, I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
Yeah,
It's tough.
yeah, it is tough. It's honestly a really weird year. There's nothing that really stood out. I'm definitely just stick with I think Metroid Dread Resident Evil Village will be it for me. I do want to finish Deathloop. I'm only a few hours into that game, but that's also because it came out with like a Tales of Arise and a bunch of other games. But yeah, definitely just have more to play. I think It Takes Two. I'd be very happy if that won, just because I think out of all the games here, I think given the scale of that studio, I think that was probably the most impressive for me. The fact that like they had like a 3 year turnaround and they got a game that was not only longer but had like way more fun gameplay possibilities. And in my opinion, probably even had like a better story behind it or like at least a better vision behind it than A Way Out for sure. So yeah, I honestly wouldn't really be mad for any of these games if they won. They're all like solid in my opinion. Nothing really stood out. But yeah. Anyways, I guess I'll move on to our world premiere predictions, which should be pretty exciting. We have two kind of like safe-ish games, and then we have like a really bold prediction. So we'll go through our safer ones first. And yeah, so if you want to start us off, Charlie, what is your first
Yeah.
safe prediction?
So I put semi safe because I feel like these are 50-50. They could be there, they could not be there. I think I've said this one would show up at basically every Jeff event that has happened this year, but I think we do get a new Gotham Knights trailer.
Oh my god.
um, and I think we get a release date as well because the release date is leaked a few times now, but nothing has happened. We know it's coming out in the spring. I think the leak date is like the 28th of April. I still think that is a very plausible date. And I think it's possible we get it here. But Warner Brothers have been partnered with Jeff at like every event and they still haven't shown it off. So I feel like it has to appear at one of them. And if it doesn't, I'm going to be sad. So yeah, I think it'll show up here, but I'm not sure. 50-50.
Yeah, I definitely think that's 50-50. I didn't really even consider that, but it's definitely possible. For my first safe, well, not safe-ish prediction, but like realistic, I even think this one's kind of bold. I put Bioshock 4, and I put this at like every Game of the Year, like Game Awards events that happens. Like even like I haven't really been following it much lately, so for all I know, they could have outward said it's not going to be here, or that it's like in trouble development or something like that. But we've heard they're making Bioshock 4 for like years and years now. So like sooner or later I gotta be right, right? So yeah, maybe this is the year and we finally get to see another Bioshock installment. So yeah, that's what I put. What's your next safe
Um,
one or
so my second
prediction?
safe one, I was kind of torn. At first, I was gonna go with the God of War thing, right? I was gonna be like, we get God of War gameplay trailer and we get a release date. But then I thought, no, I'm not gonna do that because I'm honestly not sure. I've gone with Callisto Protocol being shown, and I think we're gonna get gameplay. Obviously, this was revealed last Game Awards with a CG trailer, and we know it's coming out next year. And it was probably the biggest surprise that I think everyone was pretty excited for coming out of Game Awards. Coming from the original team that did Dead Space One, being set in the PUBG world, which is kind of weird. But it looks really promising. I do want to see actual gameplay. I think it's about time. They occasionally tease stuff on Twitter, but they haven't shown any footage yet. So I think this will line up well. PUBG Corp seem to have a pretty strong relationship with Jeff. I think they've been at the Game Awards pretty consistently the past few years. Whether that was I think they showed off like the snow map originally first there, and then when Player Unknown split, or before he split off from PUBG Corp, when he first started working on this new weird project he's doing. That was shown off there. And then obviously we got the reveal of Callisto Protocol last year, so I think we could see gameplay this year.
That'd be really cool. I'd totally be down for that. That's a good shout for that. Anyways, my next somewhat safe, I think it's pretty likely, but also just pretty unlikely just given the fact of Nintendo. So I said Metroid Prime Trilogy is finally announced for Switch, and it's coming out early 2022. Now this might be too soon after Metroid Dread, but like I'm just thinking like Nintendo's nominated for Game of the Year under Metroid Dread, right? And we know that Metroid Prime Trilogy's definitely been ready. Like it's definitely out. Like they have it working on the Switch. They could just kind of release it whenever they want. They're probably just waiting until closer to Metroid Prime 4, right? And Metroid Prime 4 has been worked on underneath, Retro Studios now for probably at least like over 3 years now, right? Like or close to 3 years.
I think it's about 2 years.
Oh, is it only 2 years then?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's still a decent amount of time, in my opinion. Whatever. I want Metroid Prime Trilogy to be announced, and I think if Metroid Dread is being nominated for Game of the Year, they could pull a Bayonetta 1 and 2 thing that they did and announce it. But who knows? I just want it to be a thing. They usually drop ports usually early on in the year as well, so I think it's possible. But my only thing is it's literally been like 2 months since we had a Metroid title, so maybe it'll be too early, even though they are very different genres. One's like a first-person shooter. It's still Metroid, right? But a man can dream, so yeah. What's your first or last bold prediction?
So yeah, I wasn't sure what to go with here. I don't think this one will happen, hence why it's a bold prediction. But I put Kojima takes to the stage and shows off his new game, and it's not Silent Hills. That's it.
That's a good one.
That's it.
That's totally possible because it's been like 2 years since Kojima dropped.
I don't know. I don't think it's time. I would love for him to show something off, and I think it's going to be horror related, but I don't think it's going to be Silent Hills. I don't think it's going to have anything to do with Konami. I think it's going to be his own
does work
original
fast.
thing. So, yeah, we'll see.
He does work fast, and he does announce his projects early, so I think you could have something going there. But I could see it going either way. But, yeah, that's a good one. I'd like to see what Kojima's working on next. For my last one, I just had to for the meme. I said Factions 2 is revealed, out now. But that's not going to happen.
Didn't we say that last year?
Probably. I remember talking to you. You're like,
this.
I think you were streaming like Uncharted 2 back in like January. I'm like, we got to be getting Factions 2 announced like any month
this
now.
Summer.
And it's only been a
On
year
PS
since
Plus.
then. I don't know, man. I don't know what Naughty Dog's doing besides The Last of Us remake, but they should be prioritizing this this multiplayer game. I know for sure it's not going to be Shadow Dropped. I was just there for the meme. And I don't think it will be announced here either. If you ask me, I wouldn't even be surprised if we don't hear about it by E3 time next year. Like, it really, like, based on that note they sent around Factions time, it really sounds like they're still, like, very early in development, or it's, like, still, like, prime time development for that.
I'm going to be honest. At this point, crazy. I don't think we're ever going to hear about it.
You think it's just going to be dropped?
I've just given up. When they eventually announce it, cool, I'll be all hands on deck. But honestly, they've taken too long. My attention has gone elsewhere at this point. Like, I honestly, it's just, I want to play it, but at the same time, like, they've taken too long. Like, I'll be here when they announce it.
It's crazy how long you gotta wait for Naughty Dog releases now, and how quiet they are. Like, back on the PS3, this would have been something that's already been out or something like that. Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, those were our predictions. Game Awards next week. I think the next episode, maybe we should record on Friday next week so we could talk about it.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. Next Friday, though, I am moving, so we'll have to figure things out because I am moving back to my family's for holiday break. So we'll figure things out. I would like the next podcast for us to record would be covering the Game Awards, so maybe we'll push it back a day or so. So bear with us and keep us, either be into our Discord server or follow us on Twitter for updates, of course, on all that stuff. So, yeah. But that being said, that was probably our longest podcast in a while.
Yeah,
it might be our longest ever. So, yeah, nearly 2 hours long. So hopefully that made up for no episode last week. But yeah, we'll see you next week for episode 50 of Critically Incorrect. Take care.
See you later.